I used to work the night shift at a rehab facility, a gritty place where the streets were rough and the patients even rougher. Despite the eerie setting of the old building with its creaky floors and the flickering lights, I took pride in my job, knowing it needed to be done. My main responsibility was to monitor the patients and prevent any trouble, but the trouble seemed to find us with alarming regularities. One night, as I was stationed at the desk, I noticed something unsettling on the security monitors. A man standing outside the gate, staring intently at the camera. He was a large figure with a scruffy beard and a menacing glint in his eye. My instinct told me he was trouble, but I tried to dismiss it. He seemed like just another local punk, trying to stir up trouble, yet he didn't move. He stood there, almost as if he was waiting for something or someone. Unable to shake the unease, I decided to use the intercom to see if he needed help. "Hey buddy, you need some assistance?" I said that to him, attempting to sound casual, but he didn't flinch or respond. His gaze remained fixed on the camera, as if hypnotized. Growing more uncomfortable, I called over my coworker Mike for a second opinion. Mike took one look at the monitor and his face turned serious, saying, "This isn't right. Let's check it out again." We walked to the gate, and the man was still there, unblinking. Approaching him, we tried to get his attention, but he didn't react. It was as though he was frozen in place. Despite our efforts to move him, he remained rooted to the spot, staring blankly at the camera. Feeling increasingly uneasy, we decided to leave him alone, hoping he would eventually snap out of it. But he didn't. He continued to stand there for hours, motionless and eerie, as if waiting for something ominous to happen. Then, without warnings, he vanished into thin air. We searched the area frantically, but there was no trace of him, no signs at all that he had ever been there. I was left with a gnawing feeling of dread, a sense that this disappearance was only temporary. The rest of the night dragged on without incident, but the oppressive sense of his presence lingered in the air like a ghostly shadow. Just as I was finishing my shift, I saw him again, standing outside the gate, his gaze locked on the camera. The chilling realization hit me. He wasn't just a fleeting nightmare, he was coming for me. Panic-stricken, I raced inside, locked the door behind me, and called the police. But by the time they arrived, he had vanished once more. Despite their search, there was no signs of him, and he never reappeared. I literally quit my job the very next day, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. To this day, I remember the sight of him staring up at the camera as a stark reminder that sometimes the things that go bump in the night are very real, and they might be watching, waiting, and plotting their next move. I was alone in the office late one night, working on a crucial project. The clock on my computer read 2:04 a.m., and the vast building was eerily silent. Everyone else had gone home, leaving me isolated in the dimly lit office. The lights above me buzzed and flickered, casting unnerving shadows that seemed to dance along the walls. Despite my best efforts to concentrate on my work, my mind kept wandering to the unsettling rumors about the building's past. Some claimed it was haunted, built on an old Indian burial ground. Though I dismissed these stories, the oppressive darkness and the stillness of the night made me question my skepticism. As I typed away, a sudden chill crept down my spine. I tried to brush it off as my imagination, but the sensation of being watched persisted. Glancing around, I saw nothing out of the ordinary. Empty cubicles and neatly pushed-in chairs. Still, the feeling of dread grew stronger, amplified by my thoughts of horror movies, where the last person in the office always encounters something terrifying. Then, I heard it. A faint creaking sound like the building itself was shifting. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but the noise grew louder, evolving into what sounded like footsteps echoing through the vacant office. Anxiety tightened its grip on me. I wanted to flee, but the thought of unfinished work kept me glued to my desk. Without any warnings, the lights flickered and died, plunging the office into pitch darkness. My heart pounded furiously as I struggled to move, my legs feeling like lead, paralyzed by fear. I could only hear my own ragged breathing, and then I saw it. A shadowy figure materializing in the doorway of my cubicle. It was tall, menacing, with glowing eyes that seemed to cut through the darkness like sharp knives. I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my lips. The figure moved closer. Its eyes locked onto me. Desperately, I shut my eyes, hoping it was just a trick of the light. When I dared to open them again, the figure was still there, looming over me like a specter from another realm. A bone-chilling cold swept over me as the apparition reached out, its presence almost suffocating. Just as abruptly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, melting into the darkness. The lights flickered back on, and the office returned to its quiet, mundane state. I sat there trembling, trying to process what I had just witnessed. Was it real? Or was my mind playing tricks on me? The rumors about the building being haunted seemed to have a grim truth after all, and I had come face to face with the malevolent spirit lurking within its walls. With shaky hands, I packed up my belongings and fled the office, swearing never to return. As I stepped out into the night, the sensation of being watched never left me. I glanced back at the darkened windows, half expecting to see the shadowy figure staring back at me, but there was only the empty, oppressive silence of the night. I kept the haunting experience to myself, fearing others would think I was imagining things. Yet, deep down, I knew the truth. The office was haunted, and I had encountered its terrifying inhabitant. As I walked away, I couldn't help but wonder if the malevolent spirit would ever return to haunt me again. In 2013, my dad and I ventured into George Washington National Forest near Deerfield for a hunting trip. It was an icy, rainy ordeal, and we struggled to keep our gear dry. The desolate woods were barren, and after 3 days, we realized we were likely the only people on the east side of Little North Mountain. We hadn't seen a single vehicle or another hunter. One night, my sleep was shattered by a bone-chilling scream that echoed down the mountain from above our camp. It was an unsettling, almost human-like cry that made my skin crawl. My heart raced as I lay wide-eyed in my tent, trying to piece together what it could have been. A second scream came, closer this time. Less than 300 yards down the washed-out trail behind our camp, I whispered to my dad, "Did you hear that?" His terse reply, "Yup," sent a shiver down my spine. I reminded him that the rifles were in the truck, something that would soon become a significant mistake. The next morning, before the sun had even thought about rising, we were already up, joking nervously about Bigfoot while eating our breakfast oatmeal. Out of nowhere, 2 forest rangers in full uniform arrived, parked right next to our campsite, and headed up the trail where we'd heard the screams. They didn't say a word, simply slinging rifles over their shoulders. We guessed they might be investigating the commotion, maybe the silence to rowdy young Sasquatch. Feeling uneasy but undeterred, we decided to hunt lower down the mountain. The mist was thick as we trudged through the underbrush, the squash of our boots merging with the eerie quiet. Every snapped twig made us jump, and I noticed my dad's glances over his shoulder. The oppressive silence made it feel like we were being watched. I tried to dismiss it as paranoia, but deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong. We stopped for lunch in a small clearing, the mist swirling around us like ghostly figures. My dad built a small fire, and we ate canned soap in tense silence. Suddenly a twig snapped behind us, and both of us froze. My dad's hand instinctively reached for his hunting knife, while I could barely whisper, "Do you hear that?" He nodded but didn't offer any comfort. We finished our meal in heavy silence, the uneasy feeling never leaving us as we packed up and headed back into the woods. The howling returned, more haunting than before, piercing the forest with its chilling cry. My dad stopped dead in his tracks, gripping his rifle tightly. "What is that?" I whispered, my voice trembling. My dad's eyes darted around, searching for the source of the sound. Whatever was out there, it was unlike anything we had encountered. With each step, the howling grew louder, as if we were walking into the jaws of some unseen predator. I wanted to turn and flee, but curiosity and the need to understand kept us moving forward. We burst into a clearing, and there it was, a creature straight out of a nightmare, standing at least 7 feet tall, with matted fur and glowing eyes. It let out another blood-curdling howl. My dad raised his rifle, his hands trembling, but before he could aim, the creature vanished into the trees, leaving us in the clearing. As our hearts were heavily pounding. I barely managed to whisper, saying, "What was that?" My voice lost in the pounding of my heart. My dad's face was pale, and he finally said, "I don't know, but whatever it is, I don't think it's from around here." We stood silently as the howling fit in with each passing moment. With a wordless agreement, we turned and hurried back to camp. The memory of the terrifying encounter seared into our minds. As we packed up and left the forest, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else might be lurking in the shadows of George Washington National Forest, waiting to prey on unsuspecting hunters like us. The terror of that day was unforgettable, a stark reminder of the horrors that might lie hidden in the wild.